When the show's credits rolled, the air in the studio grew heavy with unspoken words. What began as a seemingly lighthearted exchange quickly escalated into a full-blown conflict between Samuel L. Jackson and Jimmy Kimmel, leaving viewers and the crew in complete bewilderment. But the real question wasn't what happened, but why. Before we dive into the story, let us know in the comments where you're watching from. And don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss the latest stories. Picture yourself at the heart of the Tonight Show studio, where spotlights bathe the stage in golden light, and the buzz of the crowd vibrates in your chest like the prelude to a massive explosion. Tonight, two titans will collide. Samuel L. Jackson, a Hollywood legend with a voice that could shatter walls, and Jimmy Kimmel, a host with a sharp tongue and hidden motives. You feel the air thicken with anticipation. Something monumental is about to unfold, and you can't tear your eyes away. The studio gleams, dazzling set pieces, the rhythmic pulse of the live band setting the mood, and a sea of hands clapping in the darkness. Jimmy Kimmel strides onto the stage, his smile wide but with a barely perceptible edge, as if he knows something the rest don't. His blue suit is impeccable, but his eyes betray a flicker of unease, a quick glance at the producer in the wings, a subtle tap of his fingers on the desk. "Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to The Tonight Show," he exclaims, and the room erupts in cheers. His charisma ignites the audience, but there's something overly calculated in his movements, like he's playing a chess game where every move is premeditated. Backstage, Samuel L. Jackson prepares for his entrance. At 76, he looks as if time has no hold over him. A sleek black suit with a burgundy tie, a confident stance, and a gaze that could halt a train. He's here to promote his new film, a gritty detective thriller already hailed as his best work in a decade. But his team is on edge. An hour before the show, Kimmel's producers assured them the interview would be light and professional, with no personal or provocative topics. Yet, as Samuel adjusts his glasses, he senses a trap. He noticed Kimmel drop an odd joke about old Hollywood feuds during the warm-up, and it left a bad taste. His manager whispers, "If he crosses the line, just stay cool." Samuel nods, but his eyes burn. He's ready for a fight. The audience doesn't see this. They're electric, chanting, "Samuel, Samuel," as Kimmel introduces the guest. He's the voice that makes hearts race, the king of charisma, Samuel L. Jackson. The band launches into a booming riff, and Samuel strides onto the stage, his smile broad but his eyes vigilant, as if scanning a battlefield. He waves to the crowd, settles into the guest chair, and the room explodes with applause. For a moment, it feels like a typical late-night interview, but only for a moment. Kimmel leans towards Samuel, his smile warm, but laced with a faint hint of mockery. "Samuel, you look like $1,000,000 as always. How do you do it?" His voice is playful, but there's something in it that puts you on guard. Samuel smiles, his tone calm but confident. "Just living, Jimmy. Doing my thing and not letting anyone stop me." The audience laughs, soaking in his signature charisma. The conversation starts lightly. Kimmel asks about Samuel's new film. "This thriller is a straight-up explosion. What drew you to this story?" Samuel comes alive, his voice filling the studio. "It's about struggle, survival. The character's a man who's lost everything but keeps fighting. That's what I love. Stories that make people feel." He shares a funny anecdote from the set about convincing the director to add a scene with his trademark profanity, and the room roars with laughter. Kimmel laughs along, but his eyes drift to his notes, and he shifts the topic abruptly. "You've been in the game for 4 decades, Kimmel says, his tone seemingly admiring but with a subtle undercurrent of challenge. "How do you stay on top with all these new faces around?" Samuel leans back in his chair, his gaze sharp. "You gotta love what you do and not let anyone diminish your achievements. I've worked for every success I've got, and I'm here to prove it." The audience claps, but Samuel throws a quick glance at Kimmel, as if sensing he's gearing up for a strike. Kimmel adjusts his tie, his smile widening, but his eyes cold. "Speaking of achievements," he says, his voice taking on a conspiratorial tone, "we've got a question from a viewer on Twitter." He pulls out a card, his gaze locking onto Samuel. There are rumors of a feud between you and another Hollywood legend, Morgan Freeman. Can you tell us what really went down? The studio falls silent. The audience holds its breath, sensing the air grow heavy. Samuel tenses, his fingers gripping the armrest. His team had explicitly warned Kimmel's producers. No questions about fabricated feuds with Freeman, a tabloid myth blown out of proportion. Samuel forces a smile, but his eyes blaze. Jimmy, you know that's nonsense. Morgan and I respect each other. We both do our thing, and we don't need those stories for attention. His voice is steady, but there's a restrained power in it. Kimmel raises his eyebrows, his smile turning playful but with a faint malice. Come on, Samuel, you know how it works. People love gossip. There's never been, say, creative differences between you two? He leans closer, his tone provocative, as if testing boundaries. The audience murmurs softly, some chuckling nervously. In the control room, a producer grabs his head, whispering into his headset, "He wasn't supposed to ask that." Samuel sighs, his patience wearing thin, but he keeps his cool. No differences, Jimmy. Morgan and I are professionals. Let's talk about something real. His voice is firm, carrying a warning that Kimmel seems to ignore. Kimmel leans back, his smile now resembling a smirk. All right, I hear you, he says, but his tone suggests he's far from done. But here's another question from a fan, this time from Instagram. He pulls out a new card, his voice turning saccharine sly. They write, Samuel, you always play tough guys, but Morgan Freeman has this unique aura. Don't you think his roles carry more weight with critics? The audience gasps, sensing the tension in the studio become unbearable. Cameras catch Samuel's face darkening, his jaw clenching. He leans forward slowly, his voice low and dangerous. You trying to say my work doesn't have weight, Jimmy? I've been telling stories for 40 years, stories that make people think, feel, live, and you're sitting here trying to compare me to someone else like it's a contest? The audience erupts in applause, but their cheers carry an edge of anxiety. They sense a storm approaching. Kimmel raises his hands, as if surrendering, but his eyes gleam with excitement. Samuel, I'm just passing on what people are saying, he says, his tone patronizing. But since we're on the topic of legacy, there's one more question. Someone on social media writes, do you ever feel like Morgan Freeman still sets the tone in Hollywood while you, stick to your style? The room explodes with whispers, cameras capturing shocked faces. In the control room, producers shout at each other, one waving frantically, as if begging to stop the show. The band is frozen, the band leader staring at the stage with his mouth agape. Samuel rises slowly from his chair, his posture radiating anger but controlled strength. Jimmy, he says, his voice cutting through the air like a blade. You want to talk about style? My style is my soul, my struggle, my truth. And you have the audacity to sit here and diminish it for a few likes? You don't know what you're talking about. The studio falls silent, Samuel's words ringing like thunder before a storm. Kimmel opens his mouth to respond, but his smile fades, and he looks as if he realizes he's gone too far. Samuel, it's just a show, he mumbles, but his voice trembles. We're just having fun, right? Samuel stares at him, his eyes burning. Fun? He repeats, his voice low and menacing. Let's see how far your fun goes. The audience holds its breath, the tension in the studio reaching a boiling point, as if the whole world is waiting for the next strike. Imagine a moment where time in the Tonight Show studio seems to freeze. Samuel L. Jackson stands tall, his presence radiating power, his eyes blazing with righteous fury. Jimmy Kimmel, with a trembling smile, struggles to maintain control, but the air in the studio is so thick with tension it feels like it could explode. The audience, the camera operators, even the band, all are frozen, waiting for what comes next. This isn't just an interview. It's a battle for respect that will go down in history. Kimmel, sensing he's losing ground but unwilling to back down, clutches another card. His voice shakes, but he tries to cling to his confidence. Samuel, let's do one more fan question, he says, his eyes glinting with a mix of panic and thrill. Someone on Twitter writes, You always play tough guys, but doesn't it feel like Morgan Freeman connects with audiences on a deeper level? His roles, well, they kind of change the world. The audience gasps, their voices merging into a tense hum. Cameras catch Samuel's face darkening, his hands clenching into fists. In the control room, chaos erupts. One producer yells into a headset, another slams a fist on the desk. The band is silent, the band leader holding his drumsticks as if afraid to move. Samuel leans forward slowly, his voice low but piercing the silence like lightning. You want to talk about changing the world, Jimmy? I change the world every time I step in front of a camera. My roles aren't just tough guys. They're people who fight, love, lose. And you're sitting here trying to diminish that for some tweets? You don't get to do that. The audience erupts in applause, but Kimmel, like a cornered animal, decides to make one final move. He adjusts his glasses, his smile turning crooked. Samuel, I'm just relaying what people think, he says, his tone now openly sarcastic. Last question, I promise. Someone on Instagram asks, don't you ever feel like your career could have been, well, more significant if you took roles like Morgan's, the kind that leave a mark on history? The studio explodes with whispers and exclamations. Cameras capture stunned faces in the crowd, some covering their mouths. In the control room, a producer shouts, "Cut his mic!" But it's too late. Samuel rises, his posture majestic, as if preparing for war. His voice slices through the air, laced with controlled fury. You want to talk about leaving a mark on history, Jimmy? My career is history. I've been breaking down walls when people like you didn't even know what a talk show was. I took roles that challenged, that made people see the world differently. And you dare tell me that's not enough? Samuel steps toward the edge of the stage, his presence filling every inch of the room. The audience is spellbound, sensing they're witnessing something epical. He turns to them, his voice growing stronger but steeped in dignity. I'm not just standing here for myself, he says, his eyes burning, as if speaking to every soul in the room and beyond the screen. I'm standing for everyone who poured their heart into creating something real, only to have someone try to tear it down for laughs or ratings. Respect isn't something you demand, Jimmy. It's something you earn with blood, sweat, and years of work. I've earned my respect. And you? You're just a host who thinks he can toy with my legacy. But I'm Samuel L. Jackson, and my story speaks for itself. The room explodes in applause, people leaping to their feet, shouting his name. Cameras struggle to capture the moment, and social media lights up with posts. Samuel rules, and Kimmel burned. Rocket to the top of global trends. Kimmel sits stunned, his face pale, his smile gone. He tries to speak, but his words drown in the roar of the crowd. Samuel, I didn't mean, he mumbles, but Samuel raises a hand, silencing him. I'm done, he says, his voice hard as granite. You wanted a show? You got one, but I don't play your games. He adjusts his suit, casts a final look at Kimmel, filled with disdain and dignity, and walks off the stage. The audience roars, applause deafening, as the control room descends into pandemonium, producers shouting at each other, trying to grasp how things spiraled so far. As Samuel disappears backstage, the studio plunges into chaos. The audience continues to cheer, some shouting words of support, others filming on their phones. On social media, clips of Samuel's speech spread like wildfire, racking up millions of views in minutes. Hashtags Samuel rules and Kimmel burned dominate global trends, and memes of Kimmel's downfall flood the internet. Fans write, Samuel L. Jackson just destroyed Kimmel on his own show, and that was a legend in action. The Tonight Show's ratings take a hit. The next day, media outlets dissect the incident, accusing Kimmel of unprofessionalism and attempting to humiliate an icon for clout. Several sponsors express concern, and online petitions demand his apology. Kimmel posts a tweet with an apology, but it's dismissed as insincere, fueling further backlash. His reputation takes a severe blow, and the show loses a chunk of its audience. Meanwhile, Samuel L. Jackson becomes an even greater legend. His speech inspires millions, and articles in Variety and The Hollywood Reporter call the moment career-defining. Even Morgan Freeman publicly supports him, tweeting, Samuel is a force of nature. Respect Samuel's new film smashes box office records, and his name becomes a symbol of dignity and resilience. In his next interview, he jokes about the incident but adds, "I don't hold grudges. I just protect what's mine." This moment on The Tonight Show goes down in history as a triumph of respect over provocation, and Samuel L. Jackson remains an enduring symbol of unyielding strength.